When I was just 18 years old, I got a second job working in the back end of a department store. Had many different duties that involved being paid from the neck down. When I met the most beautiful coworker I'd ever seen. Her name was Stacy, and I wanted to ask her out. Well, that day came about a week later. As I pedaled my bike across town, I arrived there all sweaty and out of breath. And when I walked in, I seen her. That's when I realized that life doesn't always follow the plans I make. I froze. As her beautiful blues met my deer-in-the-headlight eyes, I didn't know what to say. And when she came over to assist me, I blurted out, "I'm looking for a Mother's Day gift." After all, the day was just around the corner, but it was a total lie. As she showed me her selection, I stood there in disbelief that I couldn't get out the simple words, "Will you go out with me?" I later settled on a ring that spelled Mom in big fake diamonds. And as she packaged it up, I walked out with the only words being said, "Thank you, have a nice day." It was a long bike ride home and my first real memories of having social anxiety. Yet here I am, 25 years later, finding the courage to stand on the stage in front of you all, as nervous as a Christmas Day turkey in December. While I'm still in that awkward learning space between being at peace and feeling anxious, I've learned a few lessons along the way, and I'd like to share them with you. One of the first things I learned was to turn my lemons into lemonade. I was 19 and I started going out to the nightclubs when I was too shy to ask women to dance. So I decided to see how many no's I could get in an evening. You see, the deal was that rather than feel embarrassed when I'd get turned down, I'd brag about it instead. I'd make a big deal out of it and tell my friends. My record for the longest time was 42 no's, and I still had a lot of fun that night. I kept this up for a couple of years, and it wasn't until one night when I was living in Whistler that I was turned down 75 times. It was then that I realized I no longer had this fear of rejection. But I still struggled around people. I still had more learning to do. A few short years later, I got a job working for a contractor on CP Rail. It was my second day on the job, and I wanted to make a really good impression. My boss, a former U.S. Army drill instructor, gave me 3 simple tasks to complete. And even though my anxiety levels were really high that day, I set off to go and do them. Something I've come to learn over time is that we all have a certain amount of thinking potential, a reserve of mental capacity, if you will, available for doing things like thinking, listening, observing, comprehending, making decisions, and doing anything else that we need to do in order to get through the moments of our day. Well, when I'm feeling anxious, some to all of that potential gets used up, trying to suppress, control, and hide how I'm feeling in the moment. As a result, my ability to think, comprehend, observe, listen, and make decisions gets greatly reduced, if not impossible, in any anxiety-induced moment. Another side effect of this is poor short-term memory, simply because I'm too focused on my anxiety and I'm not being present in the moment. Well, getting back to my story, not wanting to look bad, as I set off to go and do what was asked of me, I quickly realized that I couldn't remember a single thing that he had said. Reluctantly, I went back, seeking further clarification, and that's when I realized that he wasn't having the best day either. As he spit and spewed expletives in my general direction, a funny thing happened. I couldn't see anymore, and I couldn't hear either. Even though I was only standing 2 feet away from him, I couldn't comprehend a single thing going on around me. And when he finished talking, I could slowly hear and slowly see again. And judging by the look on his face, it was time to get working, but I still had no idea what I needed to do. Over the next few days, I was labeled all kinds of things from stupid to useless to incompetent. Names that are perhaps understandable if you're ignorantly looking in from the outside. But they didn't know me or what I was going through on the inside. One of the things that I used to really struggle with was simply getting groceries. Whenever the time came, I'd always get really uncomfortable. All I had to do was say hello and thank you. But that simple act used to make me so paralyzed in fear that I couldn't even talk. This fear has transpired over into virtually every other arena of my life to varying degrees, from job hunting, dating, to simply hanging out with family and friends. Something else that I was taught to simply address the elephant in the room. The theory goes that by letting others know when I'm feeling anxious, it frees me up to be more present in the moment, simply because I'm not trying to suppress, control, and hide how I'm feeling. Well, this would be the topic of my very first speech when I joined Toastmasters in a further attempt to overcome social anxiety. And I have to say that it worked really well. It made it easier to feel understood and accepted amongst my new group of peers. But it wasn't fixing me, as I used to say. I was still struggling. Looking for other ways to help myself, I got a job working in a retirement home with Alzheimer's and demented residents. You see, my anxiety stems from a fear of judgment. And I figured that if I got anxious when interacting around these amazing souls, it would be all right, because unfortunately for them, they'd forget the conversation within a few minutes anyways. Now, this may seem rude or disrespectful to some of you, but it couldn't be any further from the truth, because I really admired these amazing people. Through them, I learned that you can be happy no matter where you are and at any age, or you can be equally as miserable. What matters is what you focus on most. And the great thing about working there was it was a safe place for me to feel vulnerable. A psychiatrist named Carl Jung once stated that which you resist persists. Meaning that if I could learn to welcome my feelings of anxiety, they would lessen, because the more that I resist them, the more they persist. Kind of like resistance feeds anxiety and acceptance starves it. It was an interesting quote. It was an interesting concept and something I applied. But I still wasn't feeling whole and complete and at peace. For over 25 years, I've continually ran away. Whenever life got too anxious, I would uproot my life and move or change my job. I always felt that this would be a way to fix myself. Well, in that time, I've moved over 20 different times, and I've had over 30 different jobs. I'm a testament to the fact that moving or changing your environment isn't the solution. Because what I've learned is that my problems are within, so wherever I go, they go too. If I can leave you with something tonight, it's that in order to overcome anxiety, we have to get to the root of our problems, the source of our trauma. Whether that's talking with somebody, sharing your story, supporting others, reading books, articles, or seeking professional help. We all have to do something in order to improve our lives. And avoidance isn't one of them. And it doesn't matter how much drugs you take, how much you drink, how much you work, travel, or bury your head. None of that helps, because it's always there within. Thank you.